I couldn't believe my parents could sideline my children like that. This thought echoed in my mind as I stood by the living room window, gazing at the clear blue sky. The annual family gathering had always been an event I looked forward to, a chance to reunite, forget daily worries, and let my children, Olivia and Ethan, bond with their grandparents. I had spent weeks preparing for this day, planning games for the kids and special dishes the whole family loved. Yet, the call from my mother shattered those hopes. The phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I answered with a smile, ready to hear the final instructions for the gathering. But her voice, though gentle, carried an unsettling tone. "Sarah, we need to talk about this year's gathering." My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, Mom. What's going on?" I asked, trying to hide my anxiety. A long pause followed, as if she was weighing her words. "This year, we're doing things a bit differently. The dinner will be smaller, just for adults, to create a more intimate atmosphere." A chill ran down my spine. "So, no kids?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. She hesitated, then sighed. "Not exactly. We just thought it would be better if you left Olivia and Ethan with a sitter. They're wonderful, but sometimes they're a bit energetic." Feelings of betrayal surged within me. I was used to my parents favoring my sister Emily, but excluding my children from a family gathering was something I hadn't anticipated. "What about Emily's kids?" I asked, striving to maintain my composure. Again, hesitation, and I knew the answer. "Emily's kids will be there. They're well behaved. Anger and pain intertwined, forming a storm inside me. I felt like I had been pushed off a cliff into a void. "They're just kids, Mom. Olivia's only 10 and Ethan's 8. They're well behaved and adore you." "We just want a peaceful evening," my mother replied, her tone losing its initial warmth. "Don't make this complicated, Sarah." A barrier seemed to erect itself between us. For years, I had tried to please my parents, to be recognized in the home I grew up in. But now, everything felt like it was crumbling before me. "If my kids aren't welcome, then neither am I," I said, my voice colder than ever. A heavy silence ensued. "Suit yourself," she said before hanging up, leaving me standing there, phone in hand, my heart heavy. Looking out the window, I saw my children playing in the yard, oblivious to the emotional storm brewing within their mother. I took a deep breath, determined not to let this hurt affect my family. I knew it was time to stand up, to protect those I loved from injustice and favoritism. I would never let anyone hurt my children again. The day after the call, I felt like I was standing on the edge of an emotional storm, unsure when it might sweep everything away. I couldn't stop thinking about what my mother had said. Each word cut deep, making it impossible to shake the feeling of betrayal. Why wasn't I welcome in my own childhood home? Why were my children excluded from a tradition I cherished? I entered the kitchen where Michael was preparing breakfast. He looked up, concern etched in his eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle yet full of worry. I could only shake my head, emotions choking my voice. "I don't understand them, Michael. How could they do this to us?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. Michael placed his hand on my shoulder, his gaze steady. "We won't let them hurt our family again," he said. His words were an invisible source of strength, helping me stand firm against the emotional tide. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let this favoritism and injustice continue. It was time to confront the truth, to face those I once believed loved me unconditionally. I couldn't let my children grow up feeling neglected and undervalued. I had to stand up, to fight for my family. That afternoon, I called my mother, determined to confront her no matter the outcome. "Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad. We need to clear everything up," I said, my voice firm yet tense. She agreed reluctantly, and I sensed the tension in her voice. We arranged to meet at a nearby cafe, a place I loved as a child but now held only faded memories I preferred to avoid. Upon entering the cafe, my parents were already seated in a corner, watching me with unreadable expressions. I sat across from them, feeling as if I were about to enter an uneven battle. "I don't understand why my children aren't welcome at the family gathering," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. My father sighed as if he had prepared a response. "Sarah, you must understand we just want a quiet evening," he said, as if explaining something obvious. I felt my blood boil. Quiet? Then why are Emily's kids invited? How are they different from Olivia and Ethan? I retorted, locking eyes with him. My mother said nothing, avoiding my gaze. I knew they had no satisfactory answer, which only fueled my anger. "I've spent my life trying to please you, to be recognized in this family. But now, I realize that will never happen," I said, my voice choked but resolute. I stood up, meeting my parents' eyes one last time. "I won't let my children endure this. They deserve love and respect, not to be treated like a burden," I declared, then turned and walked out, leaving behind the shattered remnants of a family I once thought unbreakable. As I closed the cafe door behind me, I felt like I was stepping into a new chapter of my life. A part of me had crumbled, but another part was rising stronger than ever. I knew I couldn't continue tolerating this injustice. It was time to protect my family, to defend what truly mattered. That evening, back home, I sat at the kitchen table with Michael. The warm light overhead created a peaceful atmosphere, but inside me, emotions were in turmoil. "I talked to them," I sighed, looking at Michael with weary but determined eyes. "And?" he asked, concern etched in his voice. I recounted the conversation with my parents, every hurtful word, every moment of anger and betrayal. "They don't understand, or maybe they just don't want to," I concluded, feeling like a massive weight had been lifted. "But I can't let our children grow up in an environment like that. We need to do something." Michael nodded, squeezing my hand. "We won't let them hurt us again. We'll create a space where Olivia and Ethan feel safe and loved." His words were an enormous source of encouragement. I knew I wasn't alone in this fight. We decided to create our own memories, new family traditions, without needing outside validation. The next morning, I began planning a weekend getaway for our family. No more tense family dinners, no more scrutinizing gazes. Instead, moments of relaxation together, where we could be ourselves without pretending. When I told Olivia and Ethan about the trip, their eyes lit up with joy. "Where are we going, Mom?" Olivia asked, unable to hide her excitement. "We're going to the national park," I replied, feeling lighter watching the smiles on their faces. "We'll camp, roast marshmallows, and stargaze." Ethan jumped up in excitement. "I love stargazing," he exclaimed, and I couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm. The night before we left, I sat in the living room watching the kids pack with excitement. Michael came over, his eyes full of love and determination. "We're doing the right thing," he said, gripping my hand firmly. I nodded, feeling certainty in my heart. "Yes, we are. We're creating beautiful memories for ourselves without needing anyone else's approval." As the car rolled out the next morning, I felt as if I were shedding an invisible burden that had weighed on me for too long. Olivia and Ethan sat in the back, laughing and singing the whole way. I looked at Michael, feeling my heart swell with hope and determination. Our trip was more than just a getaway. It was a declaration that we could create our own happiness. We didn't need acceptance from the larger family, didn't need to live under the shadow of favoritism and injustice. We found joy in the simplest and most sincere things. And that is the true meaning of family. The anger still simmered within me like an unquenchable fire. After the meaningful trip with my little family, I knew I couldn't keep silently enduring the injustice and favoritism from my parents. It was time to face reality, and I decided I wouldn't let anyone hurt us anymore. After returning from the trip, I received a call from Emily. Her voice echoed through the phone, laced with both reproach and challenge. "Sarah, I heard you didn't attend the family gathering," Emily said, her tone seemingly trying to make me feel guilty. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to maintain my calm. "Yes, Emily. I chose not to go because I felt unwelcome," I replied, my voice steady yet firm. Emily chuckled, a sound in which I sensed hidden disdain. "You always make a big deal out of everything. It was just a dinner. Why so dramatic?" Her words felt like daggers piercing my heart. For years I had endured favoritism and neglect, but this time it had crossed the line. "It's not just a dinner, Emily. It's about how our parents always sidelined my family, always prioritized you and yours," I retorted, anger rising. Emily was silent for a moment, then finally said, "You're always playing the victim. It's not my fault they like me more." I felt like a fire ignited within me. True, it's not your fault, but you can't keep ignoring everything and acting like nothing's wrong. I've tried my best to please our parents, but it's never enough. Emily sighed, as if tired of the conversation. "Come on, Sarah. You should learn to accept and move on." I laughed, a humorless sound. "Accept? Accept that my children aren't welcome in this family? I can't do that, Emily." The conversation ended in tension and discomfort. I placed the phone down, feeling like a part of me had shattered, but at the same time, a new determination had formed. I knew I couldn't let this continue. I decided not to let this resentment overshadow the love and happiness of my little family. We would create beautiful memories and new traditions for ourselves, without needing acceptance or acknowledgement from outside. I wouldn't let this injustice define my life or my children's. And with that determination, I stepped into a new chapter of my life, where I no longer had to live under the shadow of favoritism and neglect. My family deserved love and respect, and I would do everything to protect that. We would create our own happiness, and no one could take that away from us. After the tense conversation with Emily, I knew things weren't truly over. Even though I had cut off financial ties, I still felt like a volcano was ready to erupt inside me. I couldn't stop wondering what my parents might do next to try to regain control. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I was ready to face whatever came. A week later, on a quiet Saturday afternoon, while sitting in the living room with Michael and the kids, the doorbell suddenly rang. I glanced at Michael, both of us sensing the tension in the air. When I opened the door, there stood my parents, their faces full of determination yet tinged with worry. "Sarah, we need to talk," my mother said, her tone urgent. I crossed my arms, trying to remain calm. "About what?" I asked, my eyes never leaving theirs. My father stepped forward, his voice deep and serious. "We need to find a way to resolve this. We can't keep going like this." A wave of anger surged within me. "Resolve? After everything that's happened? After you excluded my children? After you financially exploited me, now you want to resolve things?" My mother sighed, stepping closer. "We're family, Sarah. We can't let these things tear us apart." Family? Family doesn't treat each other like this, I retorted, my voice dripping with bitterness. I've done everything I could for this family, but it's never enough. I can't let you keep hurting my little family. My father was silent for a moment, his eyes cast down. We were wrong, Sarah, but we can fix this. I shook my head, feeling like a weight was pressing on my chest. I'm not sure that's possible. I've built a new life, a new family, and I won't let anyone ruin that. My mother was on the verge of tears. We just want you back. We miss you. For a moment, my heart softened, but I knew I couldn't let fleeting emotions cloud my judgment. All the hurt, betrayal, and being undervalued couldn't be erased by a simple apology. I need time, I said, my voice gentler. I need to think about everything. My parents nodded, but I could see the disappointment in their eyes. We'll wait, my father said, before they turned and walked away from the porch. I stood there, watching them disappear, feeling a part of me being torn apart. But I knew I had done the right thing. I had protected my family from injustice and favoritism, and I would never let anyone hurt us again. I returned to Michael and the kids, knowing I wasn't alone and that I had chosen the right path. With that determination, I held my little family close, feeling the peace and love enveloping us. We had created our own world, where we could be ourselves, where love was unconditional. And that was true family. As I sat down beside my morning coffee, the first rays of sunlight glistening through the window, I felt a rare peace envelop me. The house was still asleep, and I savored this quiet moment alone. But deep down, I knew that behind this calm, a storm of emotions was still waiting. Since the tense encounter with my parents, I've had time to reflect on everything that happened. I wondered if I could forgive and open my heart again, or if it was better to keep my distance to protect my little family from past hurts. Memories of being disregarded, hurtful words, and blatant favoritism still lingered, like scars that wouldn't fade. I recalled the feeling of abandonment when my parents decided not to invite my kids to the family gathering, and the anger that erupted when I discovered they had exploited my financial help without gratitude. Those memories were like ghosts, always present no matter how hard I tried to push them away. I glanced at Michael, who was preparing breakfast for Olivia and Ethan. He had always been by my side, always supportive and loving unconditionally. His steadfastness and love were my strength through the toughest times. "What are you thinking?" Michael asked, pulling me from my thoughts. "I'm just thinking about our life, about everything we've been through," I replied, trying to mask the worry in my voice. Michael smiled, taking my hand. "We've come a long way, and we'll go even further. What's most important is we have each other." His words were a soothing balm, dispelling some of the unease within me. I knew that no matter how painful the past was, I had the right to choose how to face it. And my choice was to protect my little family, to build a life full of love and happiness, unbound by toxic relationships. I decided to write a letter to my parents, not to blame or condemn, but to express my feelings in the most sincere way. I wanted them to understand that while I loved them, I also needed to prioritize the happiness and safety of my little family. I wrote about the hurt I had endured, the feelings of being abandoned and undervalued, but I also expressed hope that one day we could find the connection we once had. Folding the letter, I felt as if I had shed a burden. I didn't know if my parents would truly understand and change, but at least I had made my position clear. It was time I no longer lived under the shadow of favoritism and injustice. That evening, as I sat beside Olivia and Ethan, I felt a simple yet complete happiness. We read books, played games, and laughed together, moments I knew I would always cherish. I realized that a true family isn't about relationships that demand endurance and unconditional sacrifice, but about where everyone is genuinely loved and respected. And with that resolve, I knew I had done the right thing. I chose to protect my little family, and I would never let anyone hurt us again. We had created our own world, where we could be ourselves, where love was unconditional. And that was what family truly means. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of protecting our self-worth and family values against injustice and favoritism. In modern life, we often face complex relationships where expectations and pressures from family or society can make us feel oppressed or unrecognized. The advice from this story is to always be honest with your feelings and not hesitate to stand up for what matters most. Sometimes, setting boundaries and saying no to toxic relationships is necessary to protect your mental health and family happiness. We should also remember that true recognition and love do not come at the cost of endurance or pain. Seek and build relationships based on genuine respect and love. Don't hesitate to create your own family, where everyone is loved and valued. In this ever-changing world, creating a positive and safe living environment is the most precious thing we can do for ourselves and our loved ones.